everyone and welcome to another TABI Live. I'm Janine Worthington and I'm the Chair of the Tarot Association for British and International Members. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. And this evening I've got the great pleasure of welcoming onto our live Severine Jeauneau, who is a long-time supporter of our TABI Tarot Association. Severine also works in international sales for Schiffer Publishing, and she's an independent literary agent. This evening we'll be discussing ethics and integrity within the tarot community. So I'm just going to invite Severine into the live. I'll just wait for her to come on. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. Hello.
Hi, Jen. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm very good, thank you, and it's fantastic to see you. Can you tell our listeners where you're calling in from this evening?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me, and you had this great idea, obviously, to do this chat about IP, which is a fascinating subject. But I'm based in London, Canary Wharf, and I hope we won't be cut off too many times if we are, because I've got planes going past and every single time we tend to get cut off. The connection will be good enough tonight, yeah. But I'm East London.
and I'm in Manchester, so we're not a million miles away.
That's it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on to talk about this fascinating subject. I mean, there's a lot to get through with this, and we are planning on creating a workshop, a full workshop via TABI for this, aren't we? So hopefully we can do this possibly in a few months or maybe later on in the year, and people can bring their questions. I think it's going to be a fascinating subject to explore in more depth.
There's so much to share. You know, we could be spending hours and hours, and the more you dig, the more cases you find. And I think especially the way the world is going, the way the digital world is moving, the way international world is also evolving, the world of IP is becoming very complex. And I think that the whole idea is not to push it away, but on the contrary, is to be aware that we have options. And it's true, we have options. And what are those options in our case? The protection is there, but most of the time we don't know that it's there and what kind of protections we have.
Absolutely. And so as a deck creator myself, when you first go into the world of creating decks, you know, whether you're self-published or whether you go with a publisher, it's quite daunting, isn't it, the process that you need to go through. So thinking about things like, and we'll discuss these as well shortly, things like copyright, trademarks, patenting, also about legal protection as well. So a lot of people are asking these questions in the tarot community when they're starting to design their decks and when they're looking for somebody to work with. So any advice that you could give them this evening would be fantastic. And for the people that are joining as well, please do ask your questions. Mary Greer's just joined. Hi, Mary. Ian's just joined as well. Lots of people coming in. So yeah, please ask your questions, and I'm sure that Severine is going to be able to answer them.
Excellent.
So, fantastic.
So I just want to say to everyone, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an IP specialist either, but obviously I just want to have this discussion with some examples which I've had through my career, plus also being an agent. I have quite a few authors coming to me asking for advice as well. So the purpose, I think, of our chat tonight is just to bring some examples, really, then to make it more tangible for everyone.
Thank you. And you were telling me as well before that the first point that a creator, an artist, or an author would look at is the actual copyright side of things.
Correct.
Can you? Yes.
Correct. So basically, if I may, the way I define IP, at least the way I define it, is something that, so IP is something that you create, okay, using your mind, and that really shows that creativity is the key starting point, okay? So when you decide to create something, you usually own the IP, okay?
And by IP, you mean intellectual property
So
rights?
property.
Yes.
You create something, you own the IP, unless you have granted the right to a third party. Now, if you create something, but you are being paid by a company, you don't own the IP. Sometimes, of course, you do, but you know there are challenges. But that's the rule. You're self-employed. You create. You own. If you work for a company, the company owns it. Okay.
That's really interesting. Okay.
Okay. So there are different type of IPs, and I think that being aware of those is rather crucial, because if you need to take legal actions, if someone, for instance, wants to steal, want to copy your name, the name of your product, or your creation, or your logo, or your design, you need to be aware of those options. Okay. So when you were mentioning the copyright, those options, first of all, are copyright, trademark,
Okay.
patent, and then you have others. But those three are the most used in publishing. Okay. When it comes down to copyright, it's a legal protection which is automatically granted to you.
Okay.
You create in this instance and you are legally protected. All right.
Okay.
So that's in the UK, but it's also in the US and in the EU. So in fact, these are countries which belong to what we call the Berne Convention.
Okay.
All right. So I'm not going to say to you, okay, fine, you're legally protected, copyright. If you are the real creator, don't register your product. I didn't say that. The more registration you have, the more likely you are to be protected.
And by protected, you mean, so for example, if I've got an idea for a deck, a concept for a deck, the concept is protected, or is it the name of the deck?
Okay, so that's a very good point. There are things that you can copyright and things that you can't copyright. Okay, what you can copyright is so the contents of your idea, which is the text, the character's name, the dialogue, a plot as well. You can copyright chapters titles. You can copyright also, of course, illustrations and audiobooks, ebooks, layout of books. You can't copyright a title. Okay.
Okay.
Right? You can only trademark a title, and it can't be generic. Coming to your idea, you can't copyright an idea either. Okay? You can't copyright common knowledge either. Okay? So there's a very fine line.
And with the trademark, so for example, I've created decks, and when I first self-published my deck in 2013, from an idea in 2012, I trademarked the name, which then went on to become the name of my brand as well. Yeah. So the In Between Tarot, I trademarked that, and at the time I learned, very interesting, that you can't trademark a concept, but then that's where the copyright comes in.
Yeah.
So yeah, is that so? The trademark is for the titles. Then have I got that right? That's for everybody to know. And then the concept is for like the meat on the bones. You know, the okay.
Correct. Okay. Trademark as well. Then, I mean, trademarking something, you are more protected, of course. But the problem with a trademark is when you apply for it, there is, I mean, it can take up to 4 months. Okay, to validate it, and you never know whether someone has applied for a trademark or not. So your trademark might be rejected because someone got it before you.
So that's interesting. So what you're talking there about is due diligence, you know, doing your research before you do your project, essential. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you want to trademark something, make sure it's unique enough.
Okay.
Do your research, go online, have a look whether it's in the same domain of activity or not. And for instance, for yours, maybe someone would have trademarked it, let's say, in an industrial, domain. Then in that case, there's no real competition. So you could have thought, it's already trademarked. I'm just going to connect with them and I'm just going to say to them, listen, it's already trademarked, but we are in a completely different domain. Could I still use it? Okay.
And that is interesting as well, because in the world of trademarks, tarot is still fairly a new thing. So it's interesting because it lumps it in with things like games.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas trees comes under there as well, but that all goes in under tarot cards and tarot card reading. There is a separate category, so these are the categories that I'm talking about under trademarks now, and the other category is actually tarot reading services. So that's interesting because you've got to make sure, haven't you, that you get the right categories for the trademark that you want. It's essential.
Totally. And obviously, the more categories you are going to take, the larger the territories also you are going to request, the more expensive it's going to be. And I think the entry point, and you're going to tell me whether it's correct or not because you've had it, I think it's £170 to trademark something. It's just the basic entry.
And it's more expensive than when I first started out, and you have to renew it. So every 10 years,
correct,
it's renewable. And if you forget to renew it and somebody takes that trademark, then there's the possibility that you've lost it, especially if they're going to keep renewing it every time it expires. So that's it.
Exactly. But also I'm going to mention another example, an author of mine. She had a working technique. She's in mind, body, spirit, and she's been using that, I'm going to say specifically, healing technique for 15 years. And she was billing, she was invoicing customers. And one day she received a letter from a lawyer saying that she had to stop using that healing technique because it had been trademarked. So she was surprised, of course, but she realized she should have marked it. But she thought, I've been using that for 15 years. I'm not going to stop. So she connected with a lawyer. And because she has been invoicing for the past 15 years, he was granted actually the right to carry on exercising. Person who registered, in fact, lost the trademark. So as you rightly said earlier on, you need to do your due diligence. If you want to really trademark something, please make sure that it's not already used, and commercialized, not even trademarked. Okay.
And it's very professional to do that anyway, and it shows that ethics and integrity, which is the title of our live, because we are a small tarot community. We work together, we collaborate together, we all know each other, so we should support each other, because, and we'll come on to this in a bit, won't we, because we get so many challenges from outside of our community with people counterfeiting decks, which is also a problem. When people are cloning our decks and cloning our accounts, that's an issue. I had so many different versions of in-between tarot accounts cloned over the last 3 years. I lost track of it, but this is something you can use the trademark for. Interesting. So with Instagram and with Facebook, if you have a trademark for the name that you work with in the tarot community, you can use their trademark form to have them take it down under your legal protected rights.
Totally.
Yes, so it's very useful, not just for the legal rights for your decks, but also for your protection online as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, usually when you apply for it, well, when you get it granted, you either get a TM or the R with the circle. You really need to make sure you put it everywhere, because that's an extra protection. And someone who's got integrity should know that if they want to use it, they would need to ask you permission, or they would need to pay financial penalties if obviously they were discovered.
Absolutely. And so many instances, of debt creators and authors contacting each other, because there is always the off chance, that it could cross or overlap. But people are usually very polite. I see you've got a similar title or a similar concept. How would you feel about? And there's lots of collaborations going on, and that is the professional way to do things.
Completely. I mean, you mentioned obviously the communities and so on, and you would think that our world is there's a lot of integrity, and there's a lot of communities you should be asking. There's plenty of places when you can ask, obviously. Then I think also if someone does not respect the ethic of a community, we all very close, and you know that whether it's TABI or whether it's Tarot Conference, that person is going to be removed, obviously. Then, but that's very much if you are in the UK. What you need to think about, these are overseas people as well, and this is where this conflict sometimes is kind of hard to control. And if you are self-published, that can be even harder to control. If you are published, obviously it's the role of a publisher to defend you also internationally, and they have a lot more power. And in terms of foreign rights, and we can discuss a bit later on as well, I've got plenty of examples regarding infringement, counterfeits as well. And without the help of a publisher, it would have tarnished definitely the sales of a deck, because suddenly you stop selling your own because all those counterfeits. And it's your reputation, because people start posting left, right, and center bad reviews about your deck, because sometimes the quality is lower. So that can be very, very, in fact, yeah.
And you mentioned self-publishing as well, and that is difficult, because if you are a creator and you don't have that financial backing with the publisher, it could be that if you wanted to challenge or make a legal challenge, you have to pay all of those costs up front. You would need an intellectual property solicitor or lawyer with that specialist knowledge to be able to draw together the paperwork. The court process may be a bit simpler if it's an issue in the same country as you, but like you said, if it's overseas, you have that additional problem of there is different legal process, etc.
Yeah.
And hoops to jump through. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're in the UK, there's plenty of places where you can get help. Okay. You have the IP Centre in London, you've got a British Library, of course, agents, you've got community, you've got publishers as well. Sometimes they can help. And you also need to think that you've got 20 minutes to half an hour free consultation with a lawyer. Okay. That's important to also remember. And there's some specialized lawyers, and they realize that you are a one-man band or one-woman band, so usually there is integrity as well. Then with us lawyers, they will tell you whether you have a case or not, because you can rocket a bill very, very quickly, obviously.
Great. So if I wanted to use somebody in that way, then they would give me an idea up front, wouldn't they, whether it's going to be worth my while, and then you can make the decision of whether you're going to pay more into that process.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it can be quite lengthy as well, can't it? So in your experience,
and it's emotional as well. It's very emotional, because you feel you're authentic and genuine, and you have people who just want to take a free ride really there, and that shouldn't be, because the word of spirituality, at the end of the day. So if you can avoid court, yes, you should avoid court, of course. This is why it's important to know your IP protections, what they grant you as well, then, especially if you are self-employed, because that can be rather overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. And with everybody using Instagram for their posts and Facebook, if you put, as well as your trademark, if you have one, put the copyright symbol after everything that you put up, because we're all putting content up, so much free content, and a lot of that is copyright material. And when people clone accounts, ruthless people would just clone an account and then put a different name and use all of your content and all of your photos, and then just put it up, and then perhaps start sending messages to your followers, and adding your followers, and then sending messages saying, would you want a free reading, grand rising, that kind of thing. And that can also cause problems for you, because people could imagine that that's you in this fake account using your copyright material. So if you put copyright after everything, every post that you do, that is another way that you can ask Instagram and Facebook to take down these copyright posts.
Lovely.
Because you've got a copyright form within the Instagram help files, and Facebook as well. You fill that in, you tell them what's been copyrighted, and then they will then look into taking it down. It's not always the case that they take it down either. I've had some occasions where they've just randomly decided they're going to leave it up.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to fight this. We have to.
Completely. It's the problem, what I said, with the digital world and internationalization as well. But you need to think that if it happens to you, it has happened to others as well.
Yes, so many people.
That's why reach out. And also talking about licensing and then infringement, plagiarism. If you do notice that the work of an author is being used and reused, and that happens a lot, please connect with the author, connect with the publisher, obviously, if that person is published, to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Quite often I've had authors being gobsmacked because they suddenly found their whole writing, their whole work being reused by another author. And they connect with the author asking, you must have had permission from my publisher, because you haven't had permission from me. And quite a few people are surprised. They say, do I need permission for this? So it's rather important, if you do notice that, please, make sure it's a community, communicate with the others, and so on, really, then yeah.
Yeah, I call it out when I see it, and has happened so many times over the years, where a colleague, a friend, a fellow creator, an account has popped up for them in a really strange format. So see Mary, you're still online, 1 2 3 4 5 Mary Greer or something like that, and that it's not Mary. It's just a quick email, a quick message, hello, did you realize that this is come up, it's using your stuff? And then people are very grateful, thank you, I didn't realize, and now I can try and take it down. And I've found that everybody has been so helpful in that. People send me messages, Janine, your account's being used, we've noticed this, and I say thank you very much, and now I can do something about it. So I always appreciate it.
Yeah, it is important at the end of the day. I think it's the only way to fight as well. And genuinely, some people are not aware of it, so again, that's why to actually reach out and to say to them, you want to reuse my work, you need to ask for permission. I can grant you permission. There's also fair use of work, so people can reuse your work, if this is for reviews or if this is for instance, as well, as long as they don't reuse everything, and as long as they send you also afterwards their own work with your work obviously in it. So I think it's a nice collaboration. It's just a matter of communication in this instance.
Oh yes, collaboration is completely different. So yeah, if you like, I'm doing this live now, afterwards I'm going to put the video up, I'm going to tag you, I'm going to thank you for your time, I'm going to say where you could be contacted, this is your website, etc. That's how a collaboration works. And that's fine to do. I'm putting up your work, you're telling me what you do, you're giving advice to people, and that is copyright, it is protected, but I am doing a collaboration with you, which has been agreed in advance, and that's the professional way to do it.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I can see some cards and so on coming onto my screen. By the way, I do have some issues, and sometimes I've got balloons and hearts and so on popping up. Don't do anything. All right.
So I see a few questions that I'm just going through. For some reason my screen hadn't been scrolling. So Marion, David's tarot is on and saying a good publisher is key. I think I do agree, and there are some fantastic publishers out there. Marion's on. We know Marion. Thanks for joining, Marion. And she says it feels like a violation when your work is copied. It absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah. I so agree with that, and especially you work so hard, and whether you are self-published or you are published by a publisher, obviously, it's all the work you've been putting through. Obviously, you know, whether it's obviously the writing, then whether it's the commercializing, the printing, absolutely everything. And then suddenly it's true, you've got someone ripping off, you know, in a very simple way what you have created. But those things happen, and I used to laugh about it. Actually, I used to say, in fact, when something is counterfeited, it means that it's good. You have reached the land of the big ones, because if your product wasn't good, obviously you wouldn't be counterfeited, you wouldn't be copied, but it can tarnish obviously yourself and your reputation as well.
It's and somebody said to me also, somebody said a few times, you know, that you should be flattered, and I said, okay, but it's tiring. You know, you don't understand how long it takes to fill out these copyright and trademark forms, and sometimes only for the social media platform to refuse to take it down. Obviously, it's a lengthy process getting in touch with your publisher as well, and then they need to go to their lawyers, because they have a specific legal team. And all of this takes time, and as you said, energy. It's very exhausting.
Yeah, but usually if you are published, it's definitely the role of a publisher. And I've had some instances, for instance, in Russia. So I sold a deck and to a legal publisher. He was actually a good friend of mine as well. He was buying quite a few Red Feather titles, and he paid his advance. He pays his file fee. We received the complimentary copies. We send that to the author, and it's the author connecting with us. I think she had a friend who spotted on the market the Star Tarot, that was the title, but with a different publisher. So I connected with the original publisher, who legally licensed the rights, and asked whether that was a reprint, maybe with a sister company or whatever. And no, that was simply another publisher who decided, I'm just going to rip off the rights. I'm not going to pay any advance. I'm not going to pay for any file fee either. And they posted that on their website. They were selling that title as well.
Wow.
Severine connected with that publisher, or I'm not sure it was a publisher, asked them to bring the title down on their website, to remove it and to pulp it. That the whole process took about a month. But because they are a publisher and they've got power behind, basically, then I don't know, as one, you know, woman band, I'm a packager as well, then whether they would have done that as quick for me or at all, in fact.
Right. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because then you can feel quite vulnerable, and yeah, especially if you're thinking, well, have I got that support, or have I got that wide reaching support? And I think that's as well where the tarot community comes in, you know, and like people like yourself, you know, we can go and ask for advice, and we've got friends and colleagues in the community.
Always. Counterfeits, trademark issues, copywriting issues, the day of today. And I can tell you, I started in the industry nearly 30 years ago. And for me, there were two markets which were gray areas. It was love and hate, and that was Russia and Asia. And I used to work with National Geographic in Russia. And he said to me, Sevi, I would never ever print in Russia. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, for me, it's a bit of a problem. I license a product from you, I pay in advance, I pay a file fee. And then if I print in Russia, the printer is going to call his mates, different publishers. And then that very same title is going to come on the shelves with a variety of brands.
Ooh.
That obviously the sales straight away are divided, you know, in between all those people. The publisher never sees any royalties, and the author either.
It's so naughty. And yeah, and David's Tarot was saying places like Temu are notorious for fake decks as well. And Aria is saying, lately she's seeing people stealing color schemes, logo styles of known creators. They're not pretending to be the creators, Aria says. There are slight differences, however, it's very misleading. Yeah.
And you know, it's true, the same-ish editions, it is very, very misleading. You've got some, well, they are professionals, I would say. They're doing that not for just one product. It's for products, of course, then. I mean, we've had also the case, that was when I was at Edison Books, of the Wallaboot Tarot by John Matthews and Mark Ryan. And this title has been counterfeited so many times. And those poor authors, they get contacted, you know, and they're being told, oh, it's a different color from the original one. As you color as well, it's a different cardstock, it's really bad. There's some pages missing. So yeah, there's some markets which are really, really problematic. Here in the UK and US, and I would say mainland Europe, it's easier, let's say, to feel protected generally, you know, because there is the proximity. Of course, if you see something, it's right on your doorstep and you know that you can act. And again, as I said, you are protected by the Berne Convention. It's more about afar, which can be over.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to everyone who's joining as well, because we've got some more people joining. There's a personal experience again from Aria, who's talking about the website that was similar to the tarot lady, so Teresa, and she was sure for a while that it was a different name, a similar name, I think, but it wasn't, you know. And just these slight changes can often pull us in to think this is the person that we usually connect with, and then it turns out that they're not. And there's so many difficult things that we need to be aware of and that we need to watch for.
Completely. And this is why, you know, I keep on saying that's important, you know, just get registered. I know it is more money, but if you are published by a publisher, they will be doing that for you, obviously, then. So really, really do your research.
I would like to ask you a question, if you don't mind. So when I did register the trademark of the In-Between Tarot back in 2012, obviously Lo Scarabeo, when I worked with them on the full deck in 2019, they went and they trademarked in Europe and trademarked in China. I believe that Llewellyn has some protection because they're selling it in the United States. But it's interesting that I put the initial trademark in the UK and carried it over, you know, so it runs every 10 years. But I don't know how that sits alongside Lo Scarabeo's protection. Do you see what I'm asking? I'm kind of saying, so because I protected it and Lo Scarabeo's also protected it because it's a collaboration and working on the project. What does that mean? Is the difference in terms of protection? I know that I've got a contract with them, you see, so I'm obviously allowed to use that name because it's my work, but I'm wondering about the trademark side of things.
So usually, I mean, obviously, if you enter a contract with a publisher, you still retain the right anyway for the text, for anything. they become the copywriter of your work.
Okay. So I lose that copyright, but the publisher retains it.
So you, because you trademark the name, obviously, then for what, it would be interesting to understand what they have trademarked precisely then. Have they trademarked the name for everything, or have they trademarked the name related to your deck in this instance? And what have you trademarked precisely as well then?
And this is where the contract comes in, isn't it? So checking all of the small print and especially before you sign it as well. Yeah.
Exactly, just to avoid the conflicts, basically then. So when did you trademark yours?
So I do know the aspects of the contracts. This is just, it's more for talking points, but I trademarked mine in 2012. The self-published deck came out in 2013, and when it was released, it was a majors only deck. And then when I did the project with Low Scarabeo for the full 78 card deck, it was 2019.
Right.
So yeah, there was the difference in time period, and when it came to renew, it was after the contract with Low Scarabeo. So because I also had my brand, you know, it's my website and everything, I continued with my own trademark. It's a rolling 10 years with the trademark.
And that again, yes, you always need to clarify that with the publisher, just to avoid conflicts, because they might be thinking, oh, she's going to do it. You might be thinking they are going to do it, and suddenly no one does it, and then someone else marks. So you if you have a publisher, enter in communication with the publisher, but don't feel sorry then, you know, for going into this gray area by not asking questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I asked them, and they said it was fine. They didn't go into more detail than that, but they just said, no, that's fine, you know, because they knew that I was using it for my business. So, and I get very nervous when I don't have that protection because of everything that we've talked about and everything that I see happening with other people. And I think it's essential to have it. Yeah, I can recommend to everybody that's thinking about creating a deck or has a deck and doesn't have a trademark, you know, get your brand, your business, your deck, get that trademarked. It's yours. You created it. It's your baby. You know, make sure you trademark it.
Especially the way the digital world is going now, so we're talking about with AI and so on, the more protection you have, the better. The publishers associations are really pushing in our favor, you know, towards the government, but the government it's quite tricky because the government, they don't want to lose, I would say, the grounds towards the other territories in terms of competition, but it's quite also tricky to think about the control. And what you hear more and more is you opt in, you opt out, you know, of the AI, obviously, then situation is not as easy at all. So suddenly, yes, your deck can become in the public domain. How? Because maybe Lo Scarabeo, I don't know, granted permission, you know, to some reviewers, and some reviewers have not respected something. So if you're not sure about something, always ask your publishers in this instance.
Yeah, absolutely. They're your go-to for everything. For advice, you know, if you're pulling your hair out because you've got the problem with the people cloning or counterfeiting, go to the publisher. But if you're self-published, and we've mentioned this, you know, you have got support out there. There are different places that you can go to, and you can also go to your tarot association as well, and you get the people in the community who have got other published decks. You know, we see some people on our chat here, Tarot 21C, Marion, Mary, you know, people that have got books, that have got decks, who can help you. You know, everybody's really friendly.
Absolutely. And the world of self-published obviously is, you know, increasing. You got Kickstarter, you got all these. So that's I think something that needs to happen is we need to really help each other. There's a smaller capacity for publishers to publish you. They're more and more selective. They're more and more rejection. So that's why you see more and more self-publishing decks. And as we keep on saying, it can be quite daunting. The last thing that should happen is that creation stops and authors stop creating because they feel that their work is going to be violated. Okay. And this is why we are here to help. Everybody's here to help creators. So please,
Yeah.
keep on creating good products.
Yeah, thank you. And we have to work in a smart way, don't we? So we need
Yeah.
to have the protection, we need to have the support as well. We need to have those ethics and that integrity ourselves. You know, we talked about doing our due diligence. You know, do your research before you start a project. I searched everywhere. Nobody else was doing the in-between tarot when I started. It was a new thing, and I remember presenting up in Keswick when they did the conferences up there, and people were saying, "I've not heard of this before. This is new," and I was like, "Oh wow, this is great." So it became my thing, and you know, you notice that when people are coming out with new and original ideas, it becomes their thing, especially when they start to copyright and they use the trademark. You know, you wouldn't stamp on their territory. I wouldn't dream of doing it. You know, it's their thing.
Yours is unique enough. And that's why we're talking about uniqueness earlier on. If you trademark something, make sure it's unique enough. And yours is the word, is also the font, the typo. You've created it is very smart. And that's what people need to think about. If you trademark something, make sure it's unusual enough as well.
Yes, that is a really good point. Unique and unusual.
Yeah.
And a few more things that have come up in the chat. So David's Tarot is saying, how much would we estimate is a good amount to approach a good publisher with? Because let's be honest, it takes some money up front. Okay, so you're talking about pitching to a publisher, I think, David's Tarot. I'm not sure. Do you mean pitching or self-publishing and then taking it to a publisher? If you pop another comment in, and we'll just see where you're going with that. And then Jason said, this is a good question. What about original concepts that are presented at conferences that aren't yet published but are being considered for publishing? Should those also be trademarked? And I know where Jason's going with this. Good question.
That's a very good question. And in our world, we don't use NDAs. And that's another way, obviously, to protect our work. You can use NDAs without having to trademark something. Right. Obviously, that there are some publishers, and I don't work with those. I'm a very ethical agent. You send a manuscript, so you send a concept, they reject it, and then you can see your very same idea, very, very similar, coming out with another author, obviously. Then, so if you send something to a publisher, make sure that you do know the publisher, make sure that this is not going to be stolen. If you make a presentation at a conference, exactly the same thing. If you feel especially something really, really, really unique, have the conference organizer sign an NDA, or obviously make sure that you do know the group, obviously, of people. So I don't know, did you have your work stolen or copied after work, or are you planning to do something?
So I think Jason's referring to the presentation that he did with TABI for our midwinter conference online. Right. It was an excellent presentation, and it was so unique. His work, his idea, his concepts. Haven't heard or seen that done before. So I think he's wondering around how he could trademark or copyright that.
What depends what he wants to do with it in this instance. Will he want to exploit that financially to commercialize it, or
yeah, and Jason, like off the top of my head with regards to that, I think that you've got a book in the making. And you know, if you've got a book in the making, you can think about approaching a publisher with your ideas. If you have a title for it, you know, that there are ways that you can use that copyright and trademark there. Remember, Sevi said before that you can't trademark the concept, but you can trademark the name.
yeah,
But the copyright is the meat on the bones, so that's everything else that you've got,
yeah,
other than the title.
I will also appreciate that obviously if you trademark something, they will see that there is the potential there, and it's one step ahead, obviously, one thing that I don't need to deal with,
Yeah.
obviously. But if you feel strongly about something, yes, just trademark it.
Thank you so much. So I just have another quick look. There are a few technical glitches with Instagram this evening. I'm not sure why, but hopefully it's been fine for everybody who's been watching. Um, yes, Tarot 21C, the UK does have high standards for trademark and copyright. Just follow the process. And there's lots of websites as well that you can look at to get more information on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of places. I said, you know, you've got the IP Centre in London, British Library. There's plenty of places to look at. Yeah, you're not being left alone, and that's why I said, you know, don't think that you have to publish via a publisher to be protected. That's not the case at all.
Oh, thank you. And I know that we're coming up to the hour mark, so really appreciated you giving us your time this evening to talk us through this process. And I think we've got the makings of a really interesting workshop as well, if you would be willing to come back to TABI and do a workshop with us. That would be great.
Plenty of things we can discuss, plenty of examples. I'd love to, definitely.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely, Janine, actually, and probably interactive questions as well, then would be very, very interesting.
And I know that you created some material as well,
yeah,
for a workshop, so we can feed that in as well, and then we can build on this. So this is our taster session.
Yeah, talk about publishing and self-publishing as well at the same time, the advantages of either mix, obviously, with IP. There's a nice workshop that we can create there. Absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. So thank you everybody else as well for joining and for your great questions. I'm going to post this up onto the TABI the TABI Instagram account afterwards. And then our lovely social media coordinator will download it and put it on the platforms. We'll have it up on our YouTube as well, so you can revisit it afterwards. I'm going to tag Sevi in the post afterwards. Note I called her Sevi because we're friends. And I can link to her Instagram and put website details as well, so you can also get hold of it after the live. And thank you very much again.
And thank you so much as well. What a great year. Yeah, because it's a very, very muddy situation, but there's actually, yeah, it's proving that being a community, that's the whole point. We're all here to help each other, and that's very apparent, in fact. So yeah, thank you so much for organizing that. And I look forward to the workshop.
Oh, thank you very much. And yes, final point, we are a tarot community. Let's look after each other and help each other, report where necessary, and yeah, let other people know where you've seen things that you think that they should know. And hopefully, you know, we can get together very soon and discuss more. Okay,
thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.